Welcome back to the Malaysia Money Matters show. It's the 23rd of January 26. We've got a stack of stories today that paints a really interesting picture. Companies are scrambling to restructure, and the authorities are cracking down harder than I've seen in years.
It definitely feels like a clean up your act kind of week.
Yeah.
Whether it's corporate balance sheets or, these massive fraud cases, the theme is getting things in order.
Let's start with the aviation sector because it is just screaming for attention right now. You have Capital A's logistics arm, Teleport, raising $50 million US, and at the same time, AirAsia X is trying to restructure $600 million US in debt.
It's really two sides of the same coin. With Teleport, that $50 million raise values them at $500 million. That's the growth engine. They're building a war chest for an IPO.
And AirAsia X.
That's the cleanup operation. They're trying to merge 7 airlines under one roof, and you simply can't do that with a messy balance sheet. They need to be lean to get those profitable London flights back online.
Right. Speaking of messy situations, I was looking at the charts for SMRT holdings, and it is ugly. The EPF and Restructure Jamaah just dumped their stakes. Is this just panic selling because the price dropped, or is something fundamental broken there?
It's fear of the future. Analysts flagged that revenue from their key client, Tenaga National, might slow down. That's classic client concentration risk.
Okay.
So when the big institutional funds see that revenue uncertainty, they don't wait around, they exit.
On the flip side, NationGate Holdings seems to have dodged a bullet. They were cleared by the Inland Revenue Board regarding that scrap metal smuggling probe, and the shares immediately hit a 3-month high.
Exactly. They finally got the tax man off their back, and the market loves it. It just proves that these legal overhangs are heavy anchors. Once you cut them loose, sentiment snaps back instantly.
Not everyone is having a great time in the market, though. Guanhuatseng made its debut on the ACE market. That's the sponsor-driven market for smaller companies, and it closed below its IPO price.
Yeah, the investors just weren't biting. It tells us that right now there is weak immediate appetite for a frozen food trader. Conversely, you have Mega First quietly buying more of Stentafilms.
That's a different strategy.
It's a play for strategic control, locking down their packaging vertical while others are hesitant.
And then there's LSH Capital dumping nearly 485 million ringgit into the Morib Rejuvenation project.
That is a massive pivot. They are betting big on tourism and property development. It's risky, but it shows where they think the long-term money is.
It's interesting that we see these private pivots right as the insurance landscape is shifting. Prudential is spending over 1.5 billion ringgit to raise their stake in their Malaysian life insurer to 70%. And this is happening right as the government announces a new medical insurance plan covering people up to age 85.
The timing is crucial. Prudential is spending billions to solidify control because they know the demand is there. And the government's new plan, it's an admission that private insurers can't carry the whole load. As the health minister warned, insurance helps, but it doesn't fix the root cause of rising medical inflation.
Okay, let's unpack the enforcement news because the numbers are staggering. The MBI Group crackdown. Authorities seized 6.65 billion ringgit in assets. That's billion with a B.
It's mind-boggling. This was a Ponzi scheme, and that 6.65 billion represents one of the region's largest asset recovery efforts. It sends a message that the authorities are going after the money, not just the people.
And they aren't stopping there. We've got an ex-Army chief charged with money laundering, the MAC's probing the Defense Ministry, and a Tan Sri arrested for a 300 million ringgit fraud.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, it's clear the days of close-one-eye enforcement are over. They're targeting high-profile figures and public sector leakages aggressively. If I were holding shares in companies with compliance gray areas, I'd be very nervous right now.
And the courtroom drama continues with Najib. He actually conceded that the 42 million ringgit in his accounts was not a Saudi donation.
That is a fascinating turn. For years, the Saudi donation was the shield. Admitting it wasn't a donation changes the entire complexion of his defense strategy.
What does that mean?
It suggests they are backed into a corner and trying to pivot the narrative to something else, maybe something more technical rather than factual.
Let's zoom out to the economy quickly. Bank Negara kept the OPR, the overnight policy rate, at 2.75%.
They're basically saying the economy is stable enough that they don't need to touch interest rates right now. It keeps borrowing costs predictable for you and me.
Internationally, we saw Telenor selling their stake in Thailand's True Corporation and, well, Donald Trump launching a board of peace after backing down on Greenland.
Telenor is freeing up cash, likely to redistribute to markets like Malaysia. As for Trump, it's a de-escalation, but allies are, let's say, rolling their eyes. They're skeptical. It's just branding rather than actual policy.
What a whirlwind. It really feels like the rules of the game are tightening up this year.
Absolutely. The takeaway for me is that between the MBI seizure and the Najib confession, accountability is the new currency. The market is going to reward transparency and punish anyone hiding in the shadows.
Subscribe to the Malaysia Money Matters podcast.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you would like a deeper dive into all the investment opportunities from today's news, subscribe to my newsletter at moneymatters.substack.com. I will be sharing a deeper analysis of the key investment opportunities from today's news, including what makes these opportunities stand out and how they fit into the broader market trends. By subscribing to the Malaysia Money Matters newsletter, you will also get exclusive insights on my watch list and portfolio and fundamental reports on Malaysian listed companies.